Well, hello and welcome to the wrap. I think Anna had to walk away for just a moment there. And it's a live show. I don't know if you noticed that it is a live show. And sometimes when it's a live show, things. Suddenly I'm looking at pre-productions and into episode 52, our 1 year anniversary. Anna is not at the camera at the moment that we are about to go live. I absolutely love it. But Anna is being super gracious on this Thursday, July 13th, 2023. This is episode number 52, 1 year anniversary. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in with us for 1 year. And if you didn't know, this is a show about all things Zwift, racing, events, tech, and fashion. We're live on Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. You can also find the wrap over on ZwiftCommunityLive.com. All the episodes are there. Oh, search up the wrap Zwift. You should be able to find that just with any search engine. Should come right on up to download this as a podcast. Anna, let's go right on into, it is our 1 year anniversary. We'll be talking about highlights of the pod. We're talking about topics we most enjoyed, topics that got us most riled up, favorite in-game update of the summer, as well as what we're looking forward to over the next year on Zwift. Today, we have an awesome, very, very excited about this guest, awesome guest, Marion Hambrick. He's a professor at the University of Louisville in health and sports sciences, and they've done a recent article in the journal, it was actually in Human Kinetics Journal, but Journal of Electronic Gaming and Esports is where it was originally published, is what I believe. He'll correct me on that if I'm absolutely wrong. Did some looking into motivations for Twitch viewership and content creation around Zwift specifically, which does definitely relate to things that we do here as we are streaming Zwift stuff right now. We're both streamers. This all started from streaming Zwift in 2015. So as far as what Zwift Community Live is all about, so we definitely thought we'd want to have him here on the program to figure out what they've figured out by doing some studies on it and maybe where things might be going. Anna, so that was the big long introduction. It's like 4 a.m. for you. You're in Australia.
Yeah, and one of my children just woke up at 4 a.m. with me. And is very excited to be sitting there watching a bit of the show as I do this as well. But yes, my voice I feel like it sounds really croaky. But yeah, I got up at 3:45 and very excited to do our 1 year pod. I couldn't miss it, Nathan. Couldn't miss the 1 year pod. But we're having a great, it's a great time in Aussie. We've gone to like Australia Zoo and seen all the snakes. We don't have snakes in New Zealand, so I've been very excited to see all the
none?
snakes.
Like none?
Yeah. None.
Wow.
We're snake free. I know, right? And so a lot of New Zealanders have this like visceral fear of snakes. And so going to see them at the zoo was like pretty fun for all of us. And then we're going to like a ginger factory tomorrow. So for all of our Australian friends, I didn't realize ginger was like a thing in Australia. But anyway, we're going to a ginger factory with a train and all this stuff. So yeah.
Ginger factory. Interesting. Huh.
Yeah. I love myself some ginger slice. So I'm hoping there's like a ginger slice there.
Gotcha.
But I'm not sure. It might just, who knows? But anyway, I have not been doing any riding or any Zwifting because I'm, away in the
Is it a long ways over there? Like getting to Australia for you? Like is it pretty quick?
Well, do you know what? I haven't traveled overseas in like a long time since the pandemic, right? And I kind of forgot all the admin around traveling, so you would drive to the airport. The flight's only 3 hours, like it's not very long. So it was a very short flight, but it's all the admin. Park your car, take the shuttle, get to the airport, catch the plane, get there, get your rental car, drive to where you're going. It felt like it took the whole day. And then I watched this like Netflix series, right, on the PGA and like golf. They're just taking private jets everywhere. I was like, wow, if you had a private jet, that would really like cut down on all this like admin around the flying. You'd just like drive to the plane, go get where you are. But, I don't live 100%. The PGA lifestyle.
Yeah. Gotcha. Well, for me, the only Zwifting I've been doing is I did a 3-hour base just ride last night because it was pouring rain yesterday, but we needed it. It hadn't been raining for a while. It's been really hot, really dry recently. So besides that, racing over the weekend, took second place at the race. Ooh, that one hurt a little bit. Local, it hurt a little bit only because this is like when I got my first pro win was at kind of this race. Another course, but the same like organizers of the race, but been a good battle between me and another local guy. So fun stuff. And then it's time to relay a lot of base layer because it's just been like racing for like 6 weeks or something and haven't done any big rides for a while. So me and Gabby did some pretty big rides recently out to Madison. We did a 100-miler on Sunday, and then the day before yesterday, we went out to a group ride and did like an 80-miler. So for those that do kilometers, what is that, 165, 170 Ks the first day, and like I think 135, 140K the second day, something like that. So just putting in big hours and we got plenty of intensity in the legs. We just need a little reminder of how to reserve those energy stores, I think. So it's been a lot of fun, and Gabby's been able to see a lot of the local group rides. And so also there's like a really cool group ride like culture in this area with like lots of people who show up, and so able to kind of like meet some new people or old friends of mine, etc., and get out and even steal some KOMs, I think, for her as well. So there have been long-standing ones that are hard to get, like really hard to get. So we were going for a few and got one or two, but usually with Gabby, she shows up like, okay, I'm going to get this one. But these have been done on like rides that have been going on for 15 years, and all kinds of people have come through, and it's like A+ hammer rides. So they're pretty tough to get because the ladies have been able to hang on with some pretty fast groups. So
actually, that reminds me, I did go for a bike ride right the day before we left. My parents-in-law came over and watched the kids, and my husband and I went for our first gravel ride together.
Nice.
It was really, really
Very
nice.
cool.
Yeah, he's got a new gravel bike.
Yeah, I was gonna say I didn't even heard about a gravel bike from him yet. So.
Oh, he's had a gravel bike for years, like forever, but he got a new one, like a nicer one. And we went out and I took all the comms. He's got a thing on his little computer which tells you where there's a like QOM coming up. And so he was like, okay, it's coming up if you want to go. I was like, okay, I'll go.
Okay, this might actually be interesting to people listening. I'm wondering, so what, as far as like, for me on my Garmin for the KOM tracker thing, I have to go and star them all. Like I have to star them for the show up on Garmin at least. Like, does he have a different computer that like you don't have to go into Strava and actually star them, that like it'll just show you whichever ones are coming up?
I don't know. I'll have to ask him. But he definitely knew when they were coming up. So I went in and so I took them all, which was really fun. But it was a hard ride. But it was quite a hard ride because you're sort of going easy, and then suddenly someone's like, hey, you've got to go do a 5-minute effort. And you're like, oh, okay. I haven't like mentally prepped for that, but I'll just like go for it. Or I'd be like, how long's that one? He's like, it's about 7 minutes. I'm like, oh, about 7 minutes I need to know a little bit more specific, but okay, let's do this. So yeah, that was really fun actually.
Right on. Sorry, this is our 52nd episode. We have been doing this for a year straight. Why don't we just do a quick little, how did we start doing this and why? Like, for 1 year, and Anna, like, this was an Anna project, just so everybody knows. Like, we've been talking about doing this for a while. We've been doing broadcasting of streaming, etc., for quite a long time. Around racing. Anna's producing all the stuff for Down Under a lot of times when it comes to the race scene. Me up here in North America. I mean, and it's been a growing thing. And then it was like always like, there's stuff to talk about. And then Zwiftcast stopped, and it was like this space had opened up, and that wasn't necessarily the motivator, though. I felt like we had already kind of been wanting to do something other than what Zwiftcast was up to, Anna. So talk about that real quickly.
Yeah, I kind of I'd wanted to do a podcast for quite a while just because I wanted to learn how to do it. I'm such a podcast listener, and I was like, I wonder how you sort of get it out there and then put it onto all these platforms. So it was kind of like a learning experience. But yeah, I distinctly remember I wrote out this whole like kind of plan, like this is, I think, what it'll sort of sound like, that we'll do it live. It'll be like this. And I remember actually being away on holiday as well. And I sent it to you. I was like, yeah. You reckon? I think this will work. Let's start next week. And you're like, okay, cool.
Yep.
So yeah,
let's just start awesome. Next week. Let's go. That's pretty much how it went down.
And it did, yeah. But it's been awesome because it's consistent every week. Like we haven't missed one. Like each of us sometimes have traveled or something and missed one, but we've had an awesome guest on. Yeah, I feel pretty proud of the fact we've done like a year's worth of weekly podcasts. Like that's not a super easy thing to do. Like it's so easy for things to get away and for it to be live as well. So I don't know. I think I'm pretty proud of ourselves for what we've done over the last year.
Yeah, it's actually a pretty good accomplishment. So, and like you said, I remember one thing that rings in my ears about this podcast with the way that it's gone down and what Anna said to me, not about this, about some other things with just making broadcasts happen. She was like, well, let's just do it and throw it out there and see what happens. That doesn't, because like, I'm like, well, was it to look right to this? And we got this in place. She's like, just do it. And it just happened. And like, that always kind of like is in the back of my head of like, well, let's do it Anna style and we'll just make it happen and it'll roll from there. And like, it's kind of been like that. Cause up front, we just kind of had this like, I think kind of made up little, and looked good. It was a microphone and then some text, you know, on the thumbnail. It was just a microphone and some text. And then like, then we had like, and then that was it. And when we went live, it would just be that image. And then there's us, right? And then it went to like, well, now it's got a list and a picture of the guest and there's music. Like, I think both of those were two separate things that got added, you know, and then it was a slow evolution of bettering it and bettering it. And then anyway, so I had to get married, and suddenly all the graphics went amazing for the beginning of the show.
I know.
That came along with the ring, I guess. But
because if there's one thing I am not good at, it is creative imagery. Oh my gosh! Like I was going into Canva, I was like, oh, what do I even put here? I don't have that brain that Gabby has, obviously, because she did like one of it. She's like, what do you think of this? I just kind of knocked this together. I was like, oh man. That's like exactly what I want in my head out. But yeah, I can't do that kind of stuff. So I'm like let's get going. I'm the go girl, but I'm not the that imagery stuff and creativeness, man, not so great at that.
So okay, two pods stick out in my mind. We're gonna do highlight pod of the year. Chat, let us know what you think is your highlight pod of the year. I'm wondering if you're gonna steal one from me or not, but I'll let you go first. Do you have in your head like a highlight podcast of the year?
Like so many have been good. Obviously, I would be biased to say that. I think I'm going to say a couple. Oh, can I say a couple, or should I just go full one highlight pod?
Well, no, you can say a couple, but one has to win out. One has to win out, though.
Okay, I really liked having Abby Mickey on, talking about
I knew it was going to be Abby Mickey. I love it. I love it that it was. I figured you were going to pick her, which I'm glad you did, because I figured that would be one of your favorites.
Yeah. I just think it was a really refreshing conversation about women's cycling. She went quite deep on it. She was quite personal on some topics, which is really nice from a guest having that, because you sort of, obviously they feel like they're in a safe enough space to sort of be talking about things like that. And it was just a really nice sort of cross between the in real life cycling and the Zwift cycling. And yeah, I just found she talked really well. And I think I looked at the clock at one point. I was like, man, we've been talking for like an hour and a half. Like it was just a really, really great chat. So that would definitely be my highlight. Although I did also, and it's just, the name is gone from my head, but really like talking to the team manager of 2024 as well.
Nicola Cramner. Yep.
Nicola Cramner. I really, probably for the same reasons. I just really
That's episode 29. So episode 29 is Nicola Cramner, and episode 38 is going to be Abby Mickey. For those that might be wondering, those are both really good conversations around women's cycling in relationship to Zwift and the growth of women's cycling, especially in relationship to the Pro Peloton. Abby being an ex-pro cyclist, as well as somebody who's founded a media outlet specifically around cycling, and does podcasts and still has lots of interaction with the Pro Peloton. And then obviously Nicola Cramner runs 2024. She is directly involved at this moment. So those are really good. I'm excited that we're even able to have those people on to get that insider knowledge to the Women's Pro Peloton.
Yeah, it was awesome. I think obviously I like all the guests. I'm also sort of saying, I love having Eric Schlange on from Zwift Insider. I think he's always he's passionate about Zwift, and he always has like a lot of things to talk about with all the updates. So, and he's like a reoccurring guest. I think he's actually going to be sitting in the hot seat here instead of me next week. But yeah, definitely the women's cycling side of Zwift, and what I think, because what they've been doing over the last year or so around the Tour de France Femme, Avec Zwift, round Paris-Roubaix, those guests feel the gratitude to what's happening in that space. So yeah, that was go have a listen to those ones. They were a lot of fun.
So
what about you, Nathan?
Yeah, for me, okay. Anytime I'm gonna order them, and I'm gonna throw Zamina K in here with Christopher Schranker, because anytime that we have him on, we end up talking around things that are very my heartbeat in this space. Like why, like a big why for me is esports, and he's so focused in on esports. So then we end up in some pretty cool stuff in that area. But the funnest one, probably the most fun I've had, was Caroline Sale. When we had her on and we were just laughing the whole time, like episode number 27, D-Cat Rider with the best post-race reports with her was just absolutely... And what was her nickname? What was the nickname of those post-race reports that she did? I forgot the nickname on Zwift Insider. Help us out, chat. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I can't, because we didn't put it in we put her name actually on the thumbnail, so I don't have the
Bambi, is it? Is it
Bambi or something along those lines. It was so great. She did those post-race reports that were just like getting this inside look to the D-Cat Riders racing experience, and a total tongue-in-cheek humor all around it. Then also the discovery of the all-white kit, like, and how that was like this. I mean, it's just such great fashion around that, and she was just a hoot, man. So much fun, so much fun. And then number one for me, so that's kind of, this is like ranking orders, having Benji Nyson on, just because like in the podcast world of cycling, yeah, and like I wasn't actually expecting that. Like all of a sudden you're like, I got Benji. I was like, oh cool, great. And then like it's also developed into this like following along in the podcast space and cycling a little bit more than I ever have before. And so, and connecting with them. So that's really cool. And I really like the discovery that Benji, behind the scenes of all the cycling he talks about, is actually really into the gaming world, completely understands it. And like, we hit these moments in the podcast that were not planned at all. And we're totally on these same wavelengths about what this is all about, and like how it grows, and what the motivations are here to be doing cycling and esports together. So that was pretty cool to have Benji on. So those are my highlight ones. We did 3, but I did rank them in order at least, right? So
yeah. No, that's good. I like it.
All right, the topic we've most enjoyed talking about. Does this the same? Like, we have 2 things here in the most enjoyed talking about and most riled us up. Like, I think I get the most riled up and enjoy it the most at the same time. But how about you? What about you? I don't have one in my head yet, so I'm gonna have to like go straight up visceral, guttural. Like, what is my gut feeling on this one?
What the topic I enjoyed talking about most, I think, has been like the overarching topic of esport, where it's going in terms of racing. So all the Olympic chat we've had, the sort of traditional sport versus esport, which is quite pertinent to the guest we're having on today too, around that. But yeah, just that whole topic, like diving deep with, the likes of Chris Schwenker, even talking to Benji about it. And yeah, that's been a really, really enjoyable one for me, where I've kind of left the pod and then gone and read some more or watched some more or looked into more of the topic of just sport in general. So yeah, that one to me has been super interesting. Where is this e-racing heading, and is it in a healthy space?
I think the one that I enjoy the most as far as topics go, it's the same one, and that's why I think that's why we hit off on this podcast a lot of times, is because we are both so passionate about where is esports going. So and every time that there is something new, like the Olympics, the World Championships, I guess like I will highlight a moment. I'll highlight a moment in the podcast's history over the last year that I most enjoyed, and that was going to World Championships, commentating on World Championships, and being a part of a community stream at the same time that you guys were putting on here, like that is a moment in this podcast history that just kind of goes down for me as like, wow, this community is awesome. Like, and that was actually said multiple, like, I think we said that like 3, 4, 5 times that day. Wow, this community is awesome. Wow, this community is awesome. And that just kept on being said around like watching this celebration of something that's as felt in the same way. It had the same feeling of why people do Olympics, like why Olympics exists is like you're celebrating the highest level of the sport. Everybody's coming around it. It's this big kind of like New Year's celebration or holiday almost. Like it kind of feels like this. And so that was definitely a moment I enjoyed the most talking about and being a part of. All right, so what riled you up the most? What did you get the most angst about? Oh, I want this to change.
I was trying to think of this. I was like, I just don't think I get super riled up a lot, and this is such a specific rile up, but maybe it's that visceral feeling. In the last race league where we went up and down the Sker summit, and there was an anvil, and I got really riled up as to why that race had an anvil, because as soon as you got the anvil on that downhill, you were gone. And if you didn't have it, you got dropped. And I was like, this isn't racing. This is just luck of the draw. And I hate this power up. And they need to I think it was my riled upness that the anvil power up is overpowered and it needs to be dialed back, which I think it has now, right? So there we go. I got riled up and something changed. So yeah, that was my very specific rile up, is the overpowered anvil power up.
So the one that sticks out the most to me right now is the one that you actually brought up, that it's not one or the other between these platforms. That one really got me hey, we don't have to fight like this. And I think it got me most riled up because I don't like seeing division in the community, because we're all one community of people who do virtual cycling, right? It's not and so and that it almost sounded like some people were not being friends anymore and stuff. I was like, wait a second, no, that's not okay. Holy cow. And I've even sensed that a little bit around a couple of relationships in the background for me too, where I was like, oh, hold on guys. It doesn't have to be we're all in the same space here. So that one definitely riled me up a little bit. So, and I'm glad you brought it up actually on the podcast. I'm really glad
on
that
my
you
PSA.
Public service announcement. Public service
Don't
announcement.
Get so riled up, everyone.
Yeah, you can still be friends and play different video games. It's okay. It's okay.
Oh my gosh.
Favorite game update.
Okay, I put this as the summer because I think we did a roundup last year of our favorite updates, but mine's actually, I don't know if this must be an update, but it's more hardware than software, and I don't have it yet. I'm getting it next week, so I can't believe I'm doing this without actually having it, but I'm so anticipating that I will love it. Is the controllers, the game controllers. Every time I ride now, I'm oh, imagine if I had that little controller to just push that or do this or steer with the pedals. So I think that, because it clearly, to me as well, put a line in the sand of the kind of direction Zwift is going into, that gamified side of things. So yeah, game controller for me is it's just cool. It's great. It got me super, super, super excited.
For me, and then I'm going to do a quick little look at chat here because we got a lot of people saying what their favorite stuff is. So I'm going to read back through some of this stuff just because we're getting a lot of interaction around these topics. But for me, interesting enough, Zwift Play is absolutely awesome. Portals, there's a lot of really cool stuff, but the littlest thing that I use the most now that makes my life easier is teleport. It's so small, it's not that big of a deal, but it is a huge deal actually because of the ease of I get into the game and I can just do everything while pedaling still. Almost everything I need to do, I don't have to log out, wait, mess around. My ride continues, and I had the most fun teleport is like actually a lot of fun if you like want to just like, hey, who's my friends who are riding? And then you find like and then boom, over to a friend. And like you pop up and like, hey, how's it going? Da, 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 da. Like, where did you come from? What's going on here? Like, that's so great. Like, and I don't know, that's and then being able to jump between the different pace partners. I actually had a lot of fun with it the other night because a few of my friends were streaming. Whitney Post was streaming, and you jump in and you try and kind of like get their attention, and like you're on their live stream or whatever, and you ride by like 10 times or whatever, and like, oh, it's Nathan, like, and then you see him, and then maybe go to another one. So it's like a little game I play with teleport.
Oh my god, you're like a teleport troll.
Totally,
Oh
that's what we were doing. We were like, and me and Gabby were both kind of doing teleport troll. Like it was definitely a thing. It's a lot of fun. So that's my favorite game update. Now Zwift are gonna change it because they're like, that's not what it's made for. Wait, what? Like,
oh my gosh, I love it.
yeah. So all right, and most looking forward to the next year on Zwift. I know what comes immediately to my mind right now, but go ahead, Anna.
So I recently just got a survey about Zwift Elite, like the Grand Prix series. So I was like, yes, it is actually going to happen. In the back of my mind, I was like, oh no, is Zwift really moving away from racing? But, I kind of am looking forward to, again, the winter series coming up, and winter for you, summer for me. And now having this goal of like wanting to get to world champs, a bit of like the fun weekly full on racing again. Maybe don't ask me of that. I might hate it again. But like, I think just, getting into just the big racing with my friends again. It gets a bit lonely over here in our winter when all you guys in the Northern Hemisphere are in summer and just doing whatever on Zwift, and the racing scene the racing scene's there, but not in the team way. It's not like you and your team coming on every week. So yeah, I'm pretty excited about that.
100%. So I'm looking forward to that. In a similar note, and this is probably just because it's where my mind is at and where I'm working every day on stuff related to Zwift, is I'm really excited to see the current community organizations that are out there, like Chasing Tour and Sisu Tour, that we're currently covering, and the amount of momentum that they currently have. 2,000 racers in Sisu Tour, I think way more than that. Maybe, I'm not sure if way more than that, but I think a lot of participation also in Chasing Tour, and how that's going to coincide with ZRL. And like, if there's going to be this, I don't know, I'm hoping and I'm looking forward to this, how do I say, like, foundation that can grow from, that's like really taking hold. And I think some of these organizations, WTRL, Chasing Tour, Sisu, there's a few others out here that are, I think, can really grow the sport from the community upwards. And the participation numbers that I'm seeing right now in the middle of summer, I'm not just saying this like I don't know, like they're pretty huge. Like for the middle of summer to have 200-300 people showing up to a 1 p.m. stream, those are numbers that we got excited about in, even in the pandemic. Like that's kind of around what we would have in a big field. Like we're almost to the numbers in the A category, that were, we maybe like three-fourths or half. I mean, and that's pandemic numbers, which are insane, like absolutely insane numbers. So like, it's usually in the summers, you show up to a broadcast of a race and you're wondering if there's going to be any excitement at all. Maybe you've got 15, 25 people in the pens going, let's make a broadcast out of this. I hope it's interesting. Like, and like totally the opposite. Like, teams showing up with tactics and ready to go and fighting for it. So it's a different environment now. So that's really exciting to me because it feels like enough growth around it that you're going to have mainstays in the community that can then continue to grow and pull in people that are new around it and not have this like wane and go kind of thing happening. So I'm excited about that. I'm excited about how things are going to grow. Also in the same vein, but mainly around watching the community really flourish. Of racing,
Yeah, I love
community
it.
of racing
Yeah.
organizations. That's what I should say.
Yeah, I mean, it's the last couple of years of racing organizations. I mean, shout out to Martin and the work ZRL did. I think to create a huge kind of racing league. But coming out, I mean, Sisu Racing, this Chasing Tour stuff, the women's series, I remember coming on Zwift, and it was like tumbleweeds when it came into my winter time. I was like, where's a race? And oh no, there's like 3 people there, and I think it was, build something and they will come. And what they've done when we've had these guys on the show is some amazing like websites and results and everything around these events. Like they're very, very high quality. And I think that has meant people come and do them.
Yeah, 100%. A couple of comments coming on in here from the chat. I am seeing some chatter around now. TTT strategies is not something that we named, but TTT strategies is something I kind of miss a little bit of. I actually, you know what? I get really riled up on TTT strategies, don't I? I'm really excited about them. So that's a good call out from chat that I didn't even know myself or my memory well enough, like to go, oh yeah, like if we get in on game tactics, like actually how to play the game, ooh, like I can get pretty fired up and opinionated on that one for sure.
Yeah, I remember that, getting Aaron in, and I was like, oh no. And Aaron's like, oh, I think I'm going to say something Nathan's going to disagree with. And yeah, it was, we did that on the early stuff, the early days, because we had it all leading into ZRL. So we had Aaron on a couple of times to talk about TTT strategies, which by the way, we'll be having to have Aaron on again when we talk about TTT strategies and steering. So that'll be something leading into the race season, because wow, that's going to really change things up.
That's a good idea. That's a really, really good idea. Amy Mendes has also said that in episode 4, way back, that she learned a ton from Aaron Bleakley, also PC Yoda. Like Apple TV wasn't the best, and I was operating on a potato, and then she upgraded to a really nice PC, which completely probably changed her Zwifting life. So that's pretty cool to see.
There we go.
I'm hearing somebody wants rowing. Okay, we're going to go on to the next topic. No, I'm just kidding. I know Beer Bear really wants rowing. It's somebody that's hanging out over on the Twitch chat, and he that is one that comes up here and there. But all right, well, let's go ahead. What are we looking forward to? We did that, so I think we're moving on now.
Yeah.
I think
we are. I think that was our 1 year sort of little feel good roundup.
There's the roundup on the 1 year, and we let's do another 2, 3, 4, 5 years. We'll see how that goes. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Marion Hambrick. He is a professor of health and sport at the University of Louisville. It's great to have you on the program, Marion. Now, I found Marion over on, I was on Twitter actually, and saw a promotion on Twitter of a Journal of Electronic Gaming and Esports for this article specifically on what is the motivation of Twitch viewership and content creation around the extra game Zwift is how it's named. Marion, welcome to the program. Really, really appreciate having you on, you taking the time to hang out with us.
Yeah, I appreciate being here, especially for your 1 year anniversary. So excited to come on and be able to talk about my research.
Well, that's kind of interesting because I think the reality of the research that you are doing and the motivations around streaming and esports is right down the alley of why we even started this podcast at all. But before we get into that, just like, who are you? What's your day job as professor? How's it in relation to sports and these motivations? Maybe a little bit of tidbits about like your cycling life there in relation to that.
Sure. So, like you said, I've been working at the University of Louisville, where I'm a faculty member there in our sport administration program. And so that's basically a program for people who are interested in working in college sports or professional sports. And so I've been teaching there for since 2010. And as a part of my role there, I also do research in sports. And so this has been a nice for me to be able to do because I've, ridden my bike for a long time, run for a long time. And so then to be able to take that into the classroom or to do research on it is pretty fantastic.
And how did that then end up with you in cycling and Zwift? Like, where I can see, I mean, obviously sports, but like, where did that intro come for you?
Yeah, so I've been riding bikes probably since about 1997 and just sort of off and on between doing that and then sometimes running and then riding bikes sort of back and forth and back and forth. And I had sort of taken a hiatus from riding until the pandemic hit. And then all of a sudden, like a lot of other people, needed to do some things because the gyms were closed. And so this really gave me the opportunity to get a trainer and then to get on Zwift. And as a part of my research, one of the things that I'm always trying to do is to figure out, why it is that people do the things that they do. And so this was an opportunity for me to do more exploration of Zwift. I grew up with a trainer back in the early days, like you will always talk about, like being in a garage, staring at the wall, just riding and riding and riding. And so really wasn't interested in getting another trainer. But then when I got on Zwift, all of a sudden it was just a brand new world that was opened up to me. The whole idea around gamification and being able to have all of these challenges, being able to constantly learn and have this community. I found it to be interesting for me personally, really got me through the pandemic. And so I wanted to do more research to try to understand how other people were operating on Zwift and particularly using Twitch as a way to be able to enhance their experience.
Now, before we get into that specifically, I did do a little bit of diving on like you've done plenty of other research on other stuff in relationship to sports and motivation. Like, is there anything similar that somebody could relate to perhaps in like other studies you've done that are like about motivation, just to give people an example to relate to it, if that makes sense? Like, what kind of studies are you doing besides the stuff around Twitch and Zwift, etc.?
Yeah, so before the pandemic, doing more sort of in real life activities. And so trying to understand motivations for people, particularly in the areas of endurance sports. So that's
Right.
where I spend a lot of my time. A lot of the other researchers in our department are big on professional sports and on collegiate sports, but I'm just very interested in knowing for your average person, why do you do the things that you do? What motivates you to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning and get out there and to practice or to train? And so with endurance sports, people who do marathons, done research on people who do Ironmans, and just trying to understand how, as a normal person who has a regular job and kids and a partner and all of these things, how do you train for this, to do this every day, and to make it all work? And so I think I could definitely see similarities there, or especially with Ironman triathletes who they do so much where it's like 6, 7 days a week. It's a part-time job between doing your actual training and your laundry and your cooking and your nutrition and all of these things. And so just trying to understand those motivations for why they do that and how they make all of that work. And you could see a lot of similarities in their motivations to the motivations that people have in Zwift. Similar personalities, similar, like, I got to ride, I got to get my workout in, I got to do those things. And you can kind of see sort of that connection between those two groups.
That's a really interesting background, Marion. I'm a Ironman triathlete before a Zwifter. So it's can I just ask what was the overarching motivation you found with Ironman triathletes? Because I often wonder myself, like, why am I doing this?
The subjects themselves. I look at you guys. I'm like, why are they doing this? And then I'm like, of course they're wondering why they're doing this. No.
Yeah, I think for, several reasons, it's that idea around accomplishment, to be able to do something that maybe you never thought that you could do. And I hear that a lot on Zwift, like for people who Everest, where they just say, like, I just wanted to push myself to a place that I never thought that I could be there. And then once they've done that, people will just say things like, now I feel like I could do anything because I was out there for 12 hours or 15 hours or 17 hours, and I crossed that finish line, and they say your name, you are an Ironman. And that, they said that for them, that it just sort of meant the world, that now they really could go out and do lots of other things, because they just felt like they had achieved something that was just so great.
Oh, that's cool. Okay, so then coming into this study, which again is really interesting because we'd had the conversation on the podcast a few weeks ago about I'd gone off Twitch and I was like, why am I doing streaming on Twitch? What's the point? Why would anyone even watch this? What's my motivation for doing it? And from reading your study, this is basically what you're trying to unwrap, right? So what was your motivation for doing this study, particularly related to Twitches? Like, so not just why do you get on Zwift, but why do you stream? I mean, what motivated you to do that?
So for me, I didn't really know anything about Twitch before I started Zwifting. And then I joined the coalition, and that's how I learned about Discord and started to use that. And then I think that you find that when you're on Zwift, your involvement just continues to increase. Like in the beginning,
Coalition,
you're just sort of
Marion,
riding.
I'm just really quick going to interrupt you. Coalition e-racing, the team with the pink jerseys, everybody. I think it's who you're talking about, right, Marion? Just making sure everybody.
That's right.
That's okay, cool. Just making sure people understand. Coalition, the e-racing team, they put on the Friday chase racing, and they've got, there's a whole bunch of people in the community that hang out with the Canyon Coalition. Awesome. Okay, Marion, sorry for interrupting you.
Oh, no, not at all. So, when you're sort of join one of those teams, then I feel like it just really sort of ramps up your involvement in the different things that you do. And a lot of people on the team were either looking at Twitch to try to learn, like do race recon before these races, or they were using it for a variety of other reasons. And so because it wasn't something that I had ever used or really seen before, I wanted to just know more about it. And then through this study, try to understand for people, not only who watch, which I started doing a lot of, but then also that content creation piece, which like you said, you might, when you first start out, have one or two people who are watching you, and you're spending all of this time streaming, getting your setup, maybe doing post-production, all of these things. And so I wanted to understand for people who are doing this just because it's something that they want to do, they're not getting paid to do it, what were sort of their motivations for why they were actually going out there and doing that.
I think Anna and I can probably relate a lot to that idea of like what is the motivate, and like thinking back to we were talking to pre-production a little bit about this specifically of 2015, what were my motivations? And what's interesting, in the last podcast for going live, there was okay, I'm a professional cyclist. I'm going to share how I'm doing these things in 2015, how I'm training. I'm going to share how I'm training. I'm going to share the intervals I'm doing. People can follow along with my accomplishment. But it always those were always like little add-ons for me to like, we're building a community around a common good goal of like accomplishment. Like, you know what I mean? Like that was always in the background of this, like, if there was something always to fall back on as to like, why am I doing this? It's so that this accomplishment gets done and other people are jumping in with it. Like, because I'm not going to get this workout done maybe. Or maybe not even I'm not going to get it done, but I've noticed, at least that wasn't the first thought, but now I've had the experience so many times of that accomplishment while live streaming that now I can kind of like know I can push that button. I can like push the button of like, if I go live, I'm probably going to get the workout done because there's people watching me and they're with me and they're doing it with me. And that's been like a common theme that has happened ever since I first pushed the go live button, actually. And what I also think is interesting, just to piggyback on that, around the esports side of things, is I think there's also a communal, this is just me kind of spitballing it, but a little bit here, but I wonder if there's a communal thing around why the esports broadcasts also are like our commentated broadcasts are also successful, is because people have that same feeling in a communal sense where people are watching and hanging out and talking about it. It's like, oh, I'm going to go be a part of the broadcast and complete this activity, this accomplishment, where like they might not personally be having their own personal stream, but they're a part of the whole stream too. I wonder if that like same thing was somehow like intuitively in the back of our heads, and we're like, well, we'll create this space and this will happen for everybody. I don't know. There's my little. I don't know, Anna, can you relate though to what I'm saying there?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I guess like the question we had when we actually discussed your article a little bit, Marion, last week was the link here or the difference here between esport motivation of doing this and then the sort of traditional sport. So I'm looking at like a broadcasting point of view, and it's have you looked at all into the differences there between this sort of virtual world and the traditional world and how motivations are different, or is that something you'd look at in the future? Because that was kind of the question that sort of resonated for me after I read your article.
Yeah, and I think that that's one area where I would like to follow up on that. In addition to doing this type of research, I also do a lot of research on social media. And I kind of compare sort of these two things in that, before Twitter, if you wanted to post a story or you wanted to write something up and you wanted to let people know about it, you might have to try to go out to like a major news outlet and try to get them to publish your story. But instead with Twitter, you could just get on there and you can tweet something and your followers might send it out to their followers who send it out to their followers. And now all of a sudden it's kind of democratized the ability to share this information. And I feel like Twitch is kind of the same way in that before this, if you wanted to broadcast something, you'd have to maybe go out to a local television studio and try to get them to pitch, you pitch your show to them. Whereas now you just need a mic and a camera and maybe a little bit of good lighting and you've got this platform and now you can do your own thing and have other people go out there and watch it. And so I really do sort of like the idea of these platforms as a way of being able to give people the ability to do something that maybe in traditional media spaces, they really wouldn't have had the opportunity to be able to do.
Yeah, I think I think that is a pretty big motivation. I don't know, like from what I mean, immediately when I was going live, like one of the breakthrough things for someone who's up and coming, trying to be a professional cyclist, maybe is trying to make their way, like, hey, I can just live stream and I have direct contact with all these people if they can get them to my channel. Like, because there is like gatekeeping of spaces, not in like even a bad way, just like there's built up organizations that have the networks and the communication, etc. And like, you got to find your way in. It's a competitive space for people's attention. It's a great point about that with Twitter, and that Twitch can just be that, but just from a live standpoint. Although I learned very early on that you can't just push the camera live and it's going to be an attractive thing to watch necessarily. There's a lot of work and technical stuff that goes into it.
Yeah,
Marion,
absolutely.
Sorry, Marion. Do you still Zwift? Do you actually stream your Zwifting as well? That's kind of the question I had for you as well. Has this article come from a place you taking that journey and now you're streaming yourself?
So I did for a while, and then I stopped. I stopped doing it because of exactly what you said in terms of there is some technological things that you need to do in order to get it ready to go. And then sort of on top of me racing when I was already super stressed, and I raced usually like at 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning. So then having to get up earlier to get everything set up. And then, I'm not the greatest racer. So I'll go ahead and tell you within about 10 minutes in a lot of the ZRL races, bye-bye to everybody as I'm just sort of sped out the back. And so then I'm thinking, well, who wants to watch me race for 10 minutes? And then all of a sudden I'm just out here doing my own, time trial because everybody else has basically departed. So after a while, I thought it's interesting. It was an interesting exercise for me, but it's probably better for me to just go back to watching everybody else.
Gotcha. Well, I mean, there is also one thing about streaming is it's an entertainment channel too. Like you have to like, you know what I mean? You have to really engage and it's very rare that there is a successful streamer that just plays the game. Like, and
Exactly.
that's and the only people who really get that are those who are the highest level pros who are winning the big tournaments, and even they have to kind of hold on to their viewership somehow. So that's a super super rare thing, and I think having a large community around just getting results. I mean, Barney's doing a pretty good job at this point, I think, with the amount of people that we have, but within the community, there's a few of them out there at this point that have been. But I mean, now he's been a part of the Olympics. You know what I mean? He's world championships. Like, you have to have some Palmares around it too, in order to have that kind of following, I think. So let's dive a little bit into the actual study itself. So the goal of this was to figure out the motivations. It looks like there were, was it 5? Let's see here. Motives of content creators. There was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 things that you looked at initially: accomplishments, brand building, entertainment, hobby, career, interaction, knowledge, monetization, and broadcast. Am I categorizing that right, or is there another way we should look at this?
No, that is correct. And so what we tried to do is just to go back to other studies and take a look at what they found and listed all of those out for people who watched, and then also for those who content created, and to see if we could find similarities within sort of this Zwift space. And really what we were, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think you were going to go to the exact place I was about to go, was like, well, what did you find to be the highest motivators out of all of those, and how did you go about the study? I guess, how did you go about it, and then like what did you to answer those questions, and then what did you find to be the highest motivators?
Yeah, so in terms of collecting the data, what we did was just to put a call out to on different places, on Reddit and on Discord and on Facebook, to ask people if you were interested in participating in the study. And we ended up having 10 people that we sat down with for 30 to 60 minutes each, and really kind of talked to them first about their Zwift experiences, then talk to them about their Twitch experiences, to try to get a better understanding of what it was that they were doing, how they got involved with it, and what were their reasons or their motivations for why they did it. And with these people, I think they're kind of average Zwifters, what you might imagine, ranging from their late 20s all the way up to early 50s. Most of these individuals Zwifted about 4 days a week. They've been Zwifting for at least about 2 years. And primarily they did a lot of watching, and some people did content creation, and some kind of did a combination thereof. And really what we found is pretty much what you all have already said. So for people who did both of those things, their primary reasons for doing it is that they wanted to share knowledge, and they wanted to gain knowledge, and they wanted to be able to interact with others. So kind of like what you've said, you go out and you do a race, you post it out there so that if I do that race next, then I can go out there and watch the same thing. And I kind of know this is where I should do my power-ups. This is where I could get dropped. This is where I should try to have this kind of strategy. And then they also liked having that interaction where you're in that chat, you're having that conversation with others, and you're building this community inside of this Twitch space.
What's interesting to me is that so accomplishments is kind of in there, but it sounds like not so much. It's more like interaction and knowledge. Like, those were the two main ones that you pulled out of the Twitch community specifically. I'm wondering if Twitch also has like that, for some reason, that Twitch creates that as a main thing in the way that it interacts. And if like other places, like maybe YouTube might be more about monetization and branding. You know what I mean? Like I'm just thinking in the back of my head, like how I interact with these other channels. Are you thinking about exploring those ideas more, like where these other motives might start popping up in other platforms, or and expanding further out into because these ones just kind of drop off, it feels like. Entertainment, kind of like, okay, just start talking to me personally, right? I'm not talking about this like what was discovered in the study, but my anecdotal is like, I'll show up initially maybe for a little entertainment, or like pop in for 15 seconds to watch the end of a sprint because someone's absolutely suffering, and then I'm like, all right, whatever, I'm gonna go be entertained. If I'm gonna watch esports, I'll be entertained by the Dota thing that's going on at this time, or maybe something that's going on in some other esport or something. And it's mainly actually about, like you were saying, the knowledge, the interaction a lot of times, and not so much the entertainment value of it there. So, but I wonder if that is a Zwift Twitch combination that is the motive that gets pulled out there for some reason. Anyways, that's just a hypothesis.
Yeah, and I think that that is a good question because honestly, I did expect to see more entertainment. Because when I first started watching Twitch during the pandemic, when we didn't have any racing at all, and I'm just jonesing for sports, some kind of competition, then to go there and watch that, even if it was just a random race with two or three people in it, it was just something to keep me entertained. And so I was surprised then to see that that wasn't something that continued to draw people back. So I do wonder if you were to go to YouTube or to a different space, would you find that? Particularly because when I now watch you all broadcast these races, when you watch the Olympic esports a couple of weeks ago, there was a lot of involvement there. There was a lot of people chatting there. And I would imagine that they were there for that entertainment focus. So maybe it is something that you would find on YouTube that you wouldn't necessarily find in Twitch.
Yeah, I'd say like from my experience, if I go into Twitch to watch someone, it's primarily to chat to them. So I'll be like, "What are you up to? What's this?" Da, 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 da. You know, sometimes we have upcoming guests who are coming on the show, and I'll go look at their Twitch and chat to them, and while they're there, and it's very interactive. Immediately, you'll get them responding. Right? I would never go to YouTube and chat with someone. I'd go to YouTube to watch and just be entertained. So I think for me, that's like the distinction. Twitch is like this great little, and I know it's a huge company, but a great little community space where I can go talk to people and they'll talk to me back. So I get that would be a motivation there. That is the reason I stream on Twitch as well when I do stream, is because I know people will come in and I can chat to them and they'll chat to me and it's fun.
One thing
Yeah.
that is interesting, this little, I'm going to bring up this little graphic that you guys made in the study that kind of gives the difference between the content creators and the viewers. And what was interesting though also that in the study, only one individual was only a viewer. That a lot of the people who are viewers are also content creators actually on the platform, but some of them, a lot more time is spent with content creation than others. Like some of them were a lot less. So like the crossover here, but this little, also though you matched up the motivation. So those that are listening on a podcast, the viewers had community, fandom, and competition maybe as a main. But when you had that crossover between viewers and content creators, that was like the main pull between interaction and knowledge. We said, and then the content creators, and that's where I can relate to that as a content creator. Accomplishment is a big one for me. Like I go live in order to make sure that accomplishment happens, as well as throwing the brand out there and obviously learning broadcasting and getting more broadcasting out there. So I definitely thought that was interesting. And I think this also, like, for those that are interested in getting involved in the community of streaming, broadcasting, etc., just having these categories to have like why you're doing what you're doing and how you're doing and what your aims, that's super helpful actually, because you can get a little bit lost, I feel like.
Yeah, absolutely. And there was one person that I interviewed, or actually they did the interview together, and they were really talking a lot about that and saying that a lot of times when they would go out to Twitch, there was just a lot of content that was out there and you kind of had to pick between sort of what it is that you were going to watch. But the things that they gravitated towards were people who had really professionalized what it was that they were doing, that they had a clear intent for what they were doing. Branding looked good, their setup looked good, they were interacting with their audience. And so I think in knowing this, especially if you're first starting out, like you said, these are the different things that you should strive for. If you're providing that knowledge, you're creating that interaction, those are going to be the things that are going to drive people to watch your stream versus, like you said, maybe watch for 15 seconds and then you're like, oh no, this is a mess, and go off to something else.
Was there any motivation, Marion? Because I didn't saw it, so I guess it maybe didn't fit into one of the themes. But was there a motivation here of upskilling? Because I know for me, part of the streaming was actually, how do you do this? What is this whole new world? And I know you mentioned it yourself that you did the same thing. You kind of get into Zwift and then it's Discord and then you notice streams and then you think, could I do it myself? But then is there a drop off after that? Exactly like your experience and sort of what I've had is you do upskill and you do start streaming and then you're like, okay, like what next? You know, have you found any of that through the conversations or even from your own experience?
So with this, it seemed like everybody was still very committed to being a part of this. This data was collected probably, close to a year ago because it takes a long time from when you collect the data and you write it up and then you go off and get it published. So I would be curious to know, going back to this same group of individuals or to others, to kind of see what that actually looks like over a longer period of time. Because I know, just being sort of in my team, what you sort of see is sort of this life cycle, like you said, where people will get super involved. And then all of a sudden, I've seen people, they've gotten married, they've had children, they've got changed jobs. And then you see where their involvement with the team, myself included, isn't as big as it was, say, for instance, during the pandemic or like a year into it. And so you do start to wonder, like, for individuals, is there sort of this cycle where you maybe upskill, like you said, and then at some point you say, maybe now I want to go off and maybe explore some other opportunities.
Yeah, interesting. So the esports and streaming and learning outcomes from this point forward. So, I'm wondering where the focus will be going forward. We talked a little bit about this in in our pre-production. Like, the IOC is mentioned, UCI is mentioned in the and what they're up to. World Championships. We had recently had the Olympic exhibition event. That's being mentioned in the article a little bit here. But then there's also this very grassroots community side to it. And I'm wondering, like, where are you going to head with any kind of outcomes with your learnings here? Because this seems to be a growing space. And what is next in the studies that you're going to be looking toward when it comes to extra games Zwift? I thought it was interesting, the use of words there.
Yeah, and I think that is a good question. And when we talked in pre-production, I was saying how I was going to maybe go more towards grassroots, looking at beginner Zwifters or looking at senior Zwifters, because I do feel like those are two interesting categories to understand how sort of the masses are using Zwift. But I think during our conversation today, I think that you've raised some interesting questions in terms of looking at some of these other platforms. Who are the viewers that are on those versus maybe on Twitch? What are the differences, similarities that are there, to see maybe more, if I can tease out more of the motives around observations and the content creation. And then the other piece of it, like you'd said too, racing has really taken off since the pandemic, and particularly like within the last year or so, when you look at Sisu, DRS, and some of these other things, and maybe doing some more research on that to just try to understand, as a racer, what are your motivations? What are the things that you're doing? What are you trying to accomplish? Do you see differences across these various series? As a woman, why might you go and do like an all women's series versus maybe one that's co-ed? So I think that there are a lot of different avenues that you could take, particularly within the racing space, to try to get better understanding of what's happening here. And then I know, like, a couple of weeks ago with one of your podcasts, you talked about IV. What's the name of that?
Indivilo.
Yes, that's it. And saying like that's a different space that seems like it really appeals to racers. So would there be different motivations for racing on that platform versus on Zwift? So I think that there are a number of different threads that I could follow based off of our conversation today.
Yeah, it's there's a lot. There's probably like so many different avenues to jump into, hugely. So for sure, one of the interesting ones there I think you're going to find is definitely between the racer versus somebody who's just jumping in. What's really interesting too is like we talked about this a little bit in pre-production of like trying to pull, we for a long time really focused in on trying to pull cyclists into viewing Twitch. And that was a huge struggle. And the reality is like cyclists are just used to watching YouTube, and YouTube and Google are much more general public, it feels like, right? And like it's very gaming on Twitch. And I mean, all you got to do is like look at any release that looks anything like Mario Kart, and you have this immediate division in the community. Wow, you know what I mean? Like, and it's like, well, I'm serious. And so like you can just see right there, like some of the whys maybe, and trying to like sneak those out and like trying to figure out like where it is that cycling meets Zwift, and if it even does on YouTube. And kind of it does, but like whenever it does, it feels like it's someone who's already a really well-known cyclist, or in some ways is a known cyclist, or some ways has some clout, or I don't know, they look good in cycling apparel. That also might be it. And then Zwift has got a lot of attention on YouTube. You know what I mean? And so it's like, it feels like it's hard to hit that, like, this is Zwift streaming space that really is that wide entertainment and watch it motivation. So I'm really interested to see where you go with this, because I'm like, yeah, I want to know. I really want to know what are the motivations that are getting people into the platforms, and if there are any that could help a certain community grow in the streaming space, because that's the big question, I think, that a lot of people, when it comes to Zwift and streaming, have been asking and trying to answer for a long time, is like, how do we find those people? And there's a few people who kind of do it well. I mean, Ed Laverick comes to mind. He gets a solid 200 plus watching him on YouTube live. But again, he already had a cycling following. So I don't know. I don't know if that sparks anything in your mind, Marion, but it definitely is a big question for how do you create a community around streaming, and where are they going to land is a really big one. Is it Twitch? Is it YouTube? Do we make our own streaming platform? I don't know.
Yeah, I think that those are all good questions. And you all had a conversation a few weeks ago too about, is Zwift gaming, or is Zwift cycling, or is it some combination thereof? Should the UCI and IOC be the ones that are taking a look at this, or should we be going to gaming federations and having conversations with them? And so I think that all of those things sort of kind of coalesce together and trying to figure out who are we and where do we want to be, where do we want to go?
100%. Well, Marion, I really appreciate you taking the time to come on. It's been really great. I love it that you guys put this study together. I look forward to where this is going. I have a feeling there's a lot of people in the Twitch community. There's a ton of them hanging out right now, chatting actually, that are like, hey, come and talk to me. They want to talk to you, and maybe over on YouTube as well. It's gotten a lot of chatter, that's for sure. So we totally appreciate it. And are you still doing coalition races then? Like, when's your next race? You going to be in the ZRL series? Because I definitely want to like show up and find out where, and do some commentary on Marion Hambrick PhD smashing 20 watts per kilogram to the line. Come on.
Well, now it sounds like I've got to sign back up again. So I guess when the next season starts, I'll just go ahead and say it now that I'll be back out there. It's been a while, and my teammates have been asking, are you ever going to come back and race? So I guess I'll say on here, I'll be back next season.
Yeah, we'll be watching for you. We're going to hold you to it. We'll be watching for you. Marion, thanks a lot for jumping on. We appreciate it so much.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Cheers. Well, that was good. I love it that they put that time and effort into, and it's a lot of work to get published. It's a lot of work to get something published, and I'm glad that they sparked that up, and it sounds like more is going to be coming.
Yeah, it's always a good article when you read it and then come out with like more questions and more thought, because at least then it's thought provoking, right? So, I've always been a little bit questioning that difference between Twitch and YouTube. And Facebook, I remember I streamed on Facebook originally too, and now I definitely don't do that. I think that was because I kind of pigeonholed Facebook as more like that's where my non-esport friends and family kind of hang out. And when I was streaming, I think they're just like, what is this, right? Whereas then I could kind of be like, okay, let's keep it away from there. And if actually I use Twitch, if there's times where I'm like, I kind of just don't really want to stream this out to the bigger world, I'll just go on Twitch because I don't have much of a following. So I can just be like, okay, that's out there, and I know that they're friendly and they'll be nice to me when I do this.
Yeah, and the Twitch space definitely is made for live streaming. It's not really made for VOD. It's not made for videos on demand necessarily. So I think there's also that reality of like it's only live now. And so you can interact with about it being live now, and then it isn't like this replay thing that's going to be grabbed and have a million comments or whatever. Like, so
yeah, exactly right.
There is that motivation, I think, around that as well. So, all right, well, let's jump in with our jersey pick of the week as well as our garage pick of the week. I'm really excited about these ones because Watch the Femmes is always absolutely awesome. So here's the two of them. And what is this Dottie Aid kit is going to be the jersey pick of the week. I don't know if I've ever seen it. It looks really cool, actually.
Yeah, I had never seen it. So I always like having a jersey on that I've never seen before. And this one, so it's a tartan. but it's tartan top. So it's kind of like the OG tartan before we had the Scotland World unlock. But yeah, this is coming out of the UK, I believe, and it's a virtual mass participation exercise event by former Scotland captain Rob Wainwright, and it goes from 6 weeks from 1st of January, and it's kind of like they raise money for charity. There's this huge website, so it's not just Zwift. It's like all this virtual sport you can do, sort of like clocking Ks you're running, all of that, making donations. So anyway, but I saw the jersey in Zwift, and I kind of like. I mean, I don't like love like blue and yellow tartan, but I just thought it really stood out. And I mean, there are some interesting things like the blue in the jersey doesn't really match the blue in the shorts. So it looks a little bit hodgepodge. Do you know what I mean? Like a little bit like you're just kind of out there just being a bit of a rebel maybe, rather than sort of exactly matching your kit. So it's got like a little bit of work to do with the color combos, but
okay, go to their website though. Go to their website. I feel like they do that on their website though too. It's the Scottish. It's like it's got. I don't know. I can tell it's Scottish just looking at it. Like I can like.
So they've got all this merch, which is all this tartan. So I mean, it's cool. I do like it. It stands out, right? Even though I don't like. If I gave the kit a rating, it would probably be like a 6, just without all the different colors in there that aren't matching. But the fact that I obviously was like, "What is that?" gives it like a 8 or 9.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. 100%. Well, Dottie Aid 2023. That's what this is all about. So make sure to go check that out if you have any interest in that. I like what they're up to here. Help tackle MND for good. Is that going to be
motor neuron disease?
Yeah, help me out with that. Is that the same as
motor neuron disease?
Is that?
So
we have different names. We have different names in the world for MND, I believe. Motor neuron, is that the same as Lou Gehrig's? Am I got that right? Motor neuron?
Oh, I've never heard of Lou Gehrig's.
See, and that's what we call it. Like that's like in the US. It's exact.
Right.
Lou Gehrig. Let me see here if that's correct. ALS is often called Lou Gehrig's disease. Is ALS and motor neuron the same or no? I'm not positive. They have like 3 different names worldwide for it. So anyways, I was just trying to figure that one out live here. We do need a doctor on the show. Anyway, so, and then we've got TDF, Tour de France Femme Cap 2023. But there's also right alongside of that, there is an Era Life Watch the Femmes cap and musette that has launched over on the Zwift store. So, holy cow, there's some kiddos, that's for sure.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, they've done pretty well so far.
They've done really well, but they're having fun. They seem to really like the Watch the Femmes cap musette. That's what that was all about.
There we go. Guys, shh. The reason I had this cap on though, so one, I love the stuff, the swag that you can buy, because I know last year everyone was like, how do I get this? Because it was across all social media. But there's this new cap that they have, and Gabby actually, because I'm on holiday, I haven't been able to do the ride to unlock the cap, and so she said she doesn't even know if the cap got unlocked, but it was on her avatar in the ride. So maybe it's a new garage, we should check it out. But yeah, there is a new cap for those Watch the Femme rides, so go doing those. Max, shh. But also I wanted to shout out the social media I'm seeing coming from Zwift with the likes of Jesper Philipsen, who is like, he's won 4 stages in the Tour de France so far, with the cap on, doing full Watch the Femme promo. So I'm loving that this is tying into the Tour de France that's happening at the moment as well.
Absolutely awesome. I'm really excited to watch Tour de France Femmes. Watch the Femmes. It's going to be good stuff. I like it. The way that Zwift, also I was thinking about this last night, they've just come out and said it like, hey, like come and check out women's cycling. It's pretty awesome. You know what I mean? And just straight up saying it that way, I think is, and not trying to do any kind of roundabout or anything like that, like way of promoting it, but just saying, hey, go watch the Femmes. It's a lot of fun to watch. I'm watching it. Let's go do it. So I think that was a great way to go about it with their, comms around it. So, all right. So mention of the upcoming events. Well, tomorrow we've got, what are you doing? What are you up to? And then I'll show off what we're up to at the broadcasts.
Do you want to say what we're doing, buddy? What are we doing?
What are you guys doing?
We're heading off to the zoo again to have a look at these snakes. We looked at the zoo though. This is like a wild, did you guys have the crocodile hunter over in America? Steve
Yes,
Irwin,
yes,
the
yes,
trail
yes, yes,
hunter.
yeah. Yep.
So it's his wildlife park. So I kind of say zoo, but it's this like massive wildlife park. They've got like huge amount of space. So we're going to head there again and go check that out. Then back home early next week, and then a couple of days at home for me. I'm going to try and do the Tourmalet ride finally, but then I'm off to Colorado a couple of days from getting back
Holy
from
cow!
Aussie.
Lots of travel for you.
Yeah, a bit of travel, and it's a big haul to Colorado. But I'm hopefully going to be. I'm catching up with Em Nyquist. She's coming to meet me at like 5 a.m. and doing a ride, and I may be able to see Christy Tracy.
How much flying are you doing? Is that like 20 hours? 20 hours? I want to say the flying.
Yeah, it's like 12 hours. Yeah, 12 hours to San Francisco, then a little layover.
Oh, it's only
and then
12 to San Francisco. Okay,
two,
so it's not so okay. It's
yeah, it's not too bad.
yeah, so it's about the same as going to Brazil for me. Okay.
Yeah, I was
gotcha.
gonna say it will be. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I
So
thought it
that's
was
kind of
longer
like,
for some reason.
but it'll be nice because we get to I get to sit on the plane and watch some movies and stuff, have a bit of quiet time.
Awesome. Your kiddos are doing really great. They're actually doing really, really great. Well, for what we're up to, check it out. Sisu Tour tomorrow, stage 5, La Renee, and then Tour Fire and Ice for Chasing Yellow. That's what's up with us tomorrow for the race broadcast. Make sure to join Dave and I for that 22.8 kilometers uphill, 1,181 meters, and then 28.1. We're going to jump across both of the broadcasts because they're going to be long ones when it comes to the climbing tomorrow. Sisu Tour is hitting the mountains. Make sure to jump in with us for that tomorrow. What I'm up to, though, personally, is just riding my bike a lot. I think we're going to be doing tiny races plus base around them. So I'll do tiny races up front and then on Saturday, and then some base riding, and then I might do Kiss 100 as well, plus like 3 or 4 more races afterwards. I don't know. We'll see. It's like just massive hours is what I'm up to over as well as intensity, just to lay down that base, because there's some big races coming up for me in August in real life. So I'm going to be using Dad's hanging out with the kiddos weekend as well. So the reason why I'm Zwifting so much, and it is the middle of summer, is that was part of actually the motivations. We got kiddos, right? So it's gonna be kids, and when you got a lot of training to do, you got to do a lot of Zwifting. Who is that's hanging out on the broadcast with us?
There's 2 actually, both the boys. The little sister's still asleep, but yeah, the Max and Cooper with his huge giant snake.
What are their favorite parts of Zwift? They should let us know what they're up to this weekend, or what they're up to with Zwift. What's their favorite?
What do you like about cycling? What's your favorite thing on the Zwift game Mummy plays? Usually they like the volcano. Okay? Yeah, volcano.
Yeah, volcano. Same here. That Milo would say don't go on the lava. So volcano. 100%. All right, everybody. Well, we have been live on Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. There's definitely snakes in Australia, as you can see from Max and Cooper. They've got their snakes hanging out with us. So if you want to download these, head on over to ZwiftCommunityLive.com. You can find all the podcasts live to listen to in audio over there. Search up the Wrap as well, and Zwift. You should be able to find them anywhere that you do download your podcast. From myself, here in Wisconsin, and Anna, this time in Australia, hanging out with the snakes. It's going to be, we'll see you next week for episode number 53. I never thought we'd have a snake bell hanging out, chiming through for our final little goodbye.
Oh, yeah.
All right, everybody. From Anna and I, as always, ride on.